40 feet down in Bayou Sorrel, in a channel that doesn't appear on any official Louisiana charts, something was living on the bottom. Something the sonar marked as at least 30 feet long and weighing over 8,000 pounds. When they brought it to the surface at 3:47 a.m., the night turned into something no one was prepared for. Just keep an eye in front of us. Make sure you don't see nuts. Music, you got giant alligators like this. It's very dangerous. Chase watched his father get hit with a spray of liquid that sent Troy Landry, the undisputed king of the swamp, straight to intensive care with neurological damage that doctors still can't fully explain. Federal agents arrived within hours. Chase's phone was taken, and he was ordered to stay silent. 4 days later, he's choosing to speak, because whatever the Landry family pulled from that channel is still down there, and someone needs to understand what they're really dealing with. The forbidden channel. The Landry family has hunted alligators in the Atchafalaya Basin for 3 generations. If you've watched Swamp People, you know Troy's reputation. The man has caught more gators than anyone else in Louisiana. He works waters most people won't even attempt to navigate. You don't know what Mother Nature is going to throw at you. So in my mind, when I come out the gate, I'm coming out with everything I got. He built a legacy that made him the undisputed king of the swamp. His sons grew up on those boats. They learned to read the water before they learned to read books. This family doesn't scare easily, but there's one stretch of water even Troy had always avoided. The deepest channel in Bayou Sorrel lies in a part of the basin where the water behaves strangely. Currents move against logic. Equipment fails for no apparent reason. And for as long as anyone can remember, old-timers have warned their children to stay away from that particular stretch, not because of alligators, but because of what else might be living down there. Troy first heard about that channel as a boy, running lines beside his grandfather. The old man didn't mince words. That water goes down to places that don't connect to the Gulf. Underground rivers older than the Mississippi itself. Things live down there that don't belong in our world. You leave that channel alone, boy. Nothing good comes from dragging up what's meant to stay buried. For 64 years, Troy listened. He worked every other part of the basin. Caught thousands of gators. Became a living legend. But never once did he set a line in Bayou Sorrel's forbidden channel. What the sonar found. New technology changed everything. Troy had recently upgraded to commercial-grade sonar equipment designed for deep-sea fishing, complete overkill for swamp water. But Troy liked knowing exactly what was beneath his boat at all times. Y'all got bait, close pins, hooks, bullets? Yes, sir. Grab a hook. Yes, sir. On November 16, while idling near the edge of Bayou Sorrel, the screen lit up with a reading that made him kill the engine and stare. The channel dropped to nearly 40 feet, far deeper than any official chart showed for that area. And at the bottom was a mass the sonar flagged as biological, not rock, not debris, living tissue, enormous. The reading suggested a minimum length of 30 feet with a density signature far heavier than any alligator's body structure could produce. Chase was on the boat that day. He saw the same reading. That's got to be a malfunction, he said. Nothing that big lives in this water. But Troy circled back once, twice, 5 times. The reading held steady every single pass. Something was down there. And Troy Landry, the man who'd spent his entire life conquering the swamp, couldn't walk away from it. What most people don't realize is that Troy had spent 64 years wondering what his grandfather was really warning him about. Every hunter has that one story, the catch that got away, the thing they saw that they couldn't explain. Troy had heard dozens of those stories about Bayou Sorrel over the decades. Now he was looking at proof on a screen. Whatever was at the bottom of that channel, it would be the catch of a lifetime, the story that would eclipse everything that came before. everyone tried to stop him. Chase argued against it. Why, you can't just do what I have? 'Cause I'm not going to put the lines in the water. Okay. The line's not in the water. I don't care. It's not how I said long. Jacob said it wasn't worth the risk. Even Pickle Wheat, who never backs down from anything dangerous, looked Troy dead in the eye and said what she always says when someone's about to make a bad decision. You sure about this? Because I ain't fishing your body out of that water if this goes sideways. But Troy had already made up his mind that they'd come back with heavy gear, industrial equipment, steel cable, enough winch power to haul up whatever was living in that darkness. The night hunt they returned on November 18th at 3:17 in the morning, the darkest part of the night, when no other boats would be on the water to witness what they were attempting or ask questions about the equipment they had brought. Troy had sourced industrial winch gear designed for offshore oil platform work, cable rated for 15,000 pounds of pull, hooks reinforced to pierce alligator hide without bending or breaking. The sonar confirmed the creature was still in the same location, settled into the deepest part of the channel, like it had been living there permanently. Troy positioned the boat directly over the target, killed the engine to avoid spooking whatever was below, and prepared the first hook with bait that included deer quarters and whole chickens, enough scent to attract any apex predator in Louisiana. The line dropped into darkness, disappearing into waters so murky that even their most powerful lights couldn't penetrate beyond the first 10 feet. At 40 feet down, the line went slack as the bait hit bottom. Then they waited, letting the scent disperse, giving whatever was down there time to find what they had offered. 23 minutes later, the line went tight with a force that nearly ripped the winch clean off its mounting bolts. The crazy part is what the equipment showed next. Troy started the retrieval motor immediately. The cable strained as it began winding, pulling against weight that registered on the winch's digital display at over 8,000 pounds. For context, the largest alligator ever recorded in Louisiana weighed around 900 pounds. Whatever had taken that bait was fighting with strength that threatened to snap cable rated for 15,000 pounds. The winch groaned. The cable sang with tension so high you could hear it vibrating, and slowly, impossibly slowly, something began rising from the bottom of the 40-foot channel, something swimming down there. He's down there. Look, look. Get the gun, honey bun. This big sucker is going to explode. It ain't going to be nothing nice. Then the water around the boat started churning. Not the thrashing you'd expect from a hooked gator, something different. A vibration that made the hull shake and made everyone's teeth ache from subsonic pressure they could feel in their chests. Dad, this don't feel right, Chase said, his hand on Troy's shoulder. Maybe we should cut the line. Whatever this is, it ain't natural. Troy refused. The winch kept pulling. What came up? At 3:47 a.m., the surface of Bayou Sorrel erupted as the creature breached. Chase has tried to describe what came out of the water to people who weren't there. And he still doesn't have the right words. It wasn't an alligator. It wasn't a fish. It was built like something that belonged in the deepest ocean trenches, elongated body covered in scales that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A head too large and angular for any species in Louisiana's ecosystem, but it was the eyes that Chase says he'll never forget. Not the reflective eyes of a gator. Not the dead eyes of a fish. These were eyes with intelligence behind them, awareness that seemed to recognize exactly what was happening and calculate a response. The creature was exposed for maybe 5 seconds before the steel cable snapped clean. Not frayed. Not gradually failed. Snapped, as if something had cut it. Despite being rated for twice the weight it was holding, the creature dropped back into the water with a splash that rocked the boat violently, nearly capsizing everyone on board. But those 5 seconds changed everything. Troy grabbed a gaff hook instinctively, a hunter's reflex when seeing a trophy catch escape, and thrust it toward the creature as it fell. The gaff connected, tore something, and in response, something shot from the wound sight. A spray of liquid that hit Troy directly in the face and chest before anyone could react. The scream Troy made was unlike anything Chase had ever heard from his father. He collapsed on the deck, clutching his face. The liquid was burning through his shirt, causing his skin to blister and swell in real time. Whatever biological defense that creature had deployed, it was toxic in ways that had nothing to do with normal venom or bacteria. Chase grabbed everything he could, water from the cooler, anything to dilute whatever was eating through his father's skin. But the damage was already done. Troy's face was swelling shut. His breathing was becoming labored. His pupils were dilating and contracting in rapid, irregular patterns that suggested serious neurological impact. They abandoned the hunt immediately, fired up the engine, and raced toward civilization, calling ahead to emergency services, trying to describe symptoms that made no sense to the dispatchers on the other end. It knew, and here's where this gets real. Troy was barely conscious when they reached the boat launch at Pierre Part. His voice was a rasp, his throat closing from the swelling. But he grabbed Chase's arm and forced out the words that changed everything. It knew, son. It understood what we were doing. That wasn't animal instinct. That was intelligence. That moment, hearing his father, the toughest man he'd ever known, the king of the swamp who'd faced down 1,000-pound gators without flinching, say those words with genuine fear in his voice. That's when Chase understood they'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. The helicopter took Troy to Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center in Baton Rouge. Toxicology drew blood, took samples, swabbed residue from his skin and clothing, and ran every test in their database. It was that close to a disaster. I don't want to throw the towel in and say, I'm done. The results came back 3 hours later. The compound wasn't identifiable. It wasn't snake venom. It wasn't jellyfish toxin. It wasn't any known biological defense mechanism in their records. The molecular structure was complex, showing elements that seemed almost designed to attack the human nervous system and cause rapid cellular breakdown. According to sources inside the hospital, federal health agencies were notified within 6 hours of Troy's admission. Chase's phone was confiscated. Medical staff were interviewed. And everyone involved was told in clear terms that discussing the case publicly would have serious consequences. Nobody has explained why a hunting accident required that level of federal response. The price of knowing, hands down. The hardest part for Chase wasn't the federal involvement, the confiscated phone, or the unanswered questions about what they had encountered. It was making the decision that's now costing his family real money. The Landry family has officially suspended all hunting operations in the Bayou Sorrel region, indefinitely, for a family whose entire livelihood depends on covering as much productive territory as possible during gator season. Voluntarily abandoning proven hunting grounds isn't symbolic. It's thousands of dollars in lost tags, reduced income, and a public statement that Troy Landry's own son is saying some water isn't worth working. Chase returned to Bayou Sorrel one final time, for days after his father's injury. Not to hunt. Just to confirm what he already suspected. The sonar showed something still there, settled into the same position at the bottom of that 40-foot drop. He left within minutes. My daddy built everything we have on one principle, Chase said when he finally agreed to speak publicly. Respect the swamp and it'll provide. Push too hard. Take what isn't yours. And Louisiana waters will remind you who's really in charge. He forgot that lesson for one night. Saw something on a sonar screen and couldn't walk away. 3 generations of warnings. 64 years of knowing better. And he broke the rule anyway. Troy remains in intensive care, stable, but still displaying neurological patterns that doctors can't fully explain. Whether he'll return to the swamp, whether he'll ever be the same hunter who built that legacy, Nobody knows yet. Some things are supposed to stay in the deep, Chase said. My grandfather knew it. The old Cajun knew it. We got cocky with our technology and our sonar and our belief that we'd figured this swamp out. We haven't. Whatever's living at the bottom of that channel was here before us, and it'll be here long after we're gone. The least we can do is leave it alone and hope it returns the favor. The forbidden channel of Bayou Sorrel remains untouched. The Landry family won't go back, and if you're a hunter thinking about running lines in those deep, wound waters, Chase has one message: his father was the best in Louisiana, and it almost killed him. Don't doubt. If this story gripped you, drop a comment below. Would you have dropped the line, or cut it the moment the sonar lit up? And if you want more real stories from the swamp that go beyond what makes it to television, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Some things belong to the deep. Some things should stay there. Music fades.